Good evening. My guest tonight represents this country in the world's fastest growing economy, China. China has been in the news of late quite a bit, and we are all witnesses to the great strides it's making in development. Are there any lessons for us? His Excellency, Mr. Afari Donkor, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Ambassador, it's a nice job to be ambassador, isn't it?
Well, yes, it is nice, but it has its responsibilities as well, and it's a question of how you handle it.
You are Ghana's ambassador to the People's Republic of China. How long have you been there, sir, again?
3 years.
3 years. 3 years.
And about 3 months.
Do you enjoy your work?
I sure do. I think it's a good job. And the part that excites me are the challenges that are there.
What challenges are there for an ambassador? Ambassadors have parties and they invite people to come and they have a drink and their wife is beside them. And what?
Well, I'm not surprised you put it that way, because that's what a lot of people think. And maybe that's a bit of...
Times have changed.
How much I also thought, you know. But it's more than that. It's not just a question of sitting in the car and the flag fluttering and being addressed as Excellency, Excellency. There's a lot more to it. Because apart from the paperwork that you have to handle, it's more to do with the whole world economic order. And you as a diplomat, what is it that you can do to bring some measure of development to your country? And to put it simply, what I bring to the table back home. And therefore, you find that a lot more of various foreign dignitaries and presidents, various countries, advanced and those in our sector, do visit China a lot. There are numerous countries where presidents visit China every year. So it's not as if they have nothing to do.
There's a lot to do.
There's a lot to do, and most of them economic.
These days is economic diplomacy.
Exactly.
Not political diplomacy.
Not at all.
But there is a place for political diplomacy, isn't there? Because these are not mutually exclusive, are they?
Mm-hmm. There is room for political diplomacy, and there's a lot more room for economic diplomacy. It's a question of a balance. Diplomacy goes on all the time, in your home, in your workplace, everywhere. You must find a way of talking to your subordinates, if I should call them that way, or your fellow person that you work with.
Colleagues.
And it goes on. You talk to them in a more civil manner, in a more conducive manner.
All aimed at something.
All aimed at bringing out some measure of achievement, you know, both sides. So you don't just dwell on the diplomatic part of a little bit of champagne and caviar and some lovely red wine. No, not at all. You have to necessarily dwell on what is it that you will benefit from in their relationship.
For your country.
For your country, of course.
But they say sometimes it's a joke that an ambassador is an honest man sent abroad to lie for the benefit of his country.
You may put it that way. I mean, there's been all sorts of descriptions for ambassadors and diplomats. You may put it that way, but don't forget, there's no country that will consider you as the primary interest of his country. In other words, there are no permanent friends or permanent relationship. There's a permanent interest of your country. So what is it that you have to go in for?
What is it?
Bearing in mind that the other fellow or the other country is also thinking about his permanent interest.
What do we need from China? First of all, Ambassador, before we get into that, let me ask you a question about, do we need, we are a developing country, there are various financial constraints and so on. Must we have embassies in so many places, or do you not consider them so many places?
Not at all. Well, so far as I know, I don't think we have more than 42 or so.
That's
embassies.
Not too much?
Not at all.
Are they in the right places to your mind?
Yes, they are. Maybe a lot more will have to be opened, because relationships with various countries is not just the issue of, as I said, the champagne and all that. It's more economic.
But you can choose them. Choose a few countries. You don't need to have all of them.
Yes, but depends upon how much of that particular relationship you want developed. Because I don't need to mention countries, but certain countries have more to offer us. We have more to give than others.
Yes.
Now, you're talking about big China, all roads lead to China. You hear about this and that, their level of development, the pace of their development, and a lot. Now, you want to find out from yourself, what is it that we as a country can benefit from in our relationship with them.
Tell me, let's talk about that. Tell me, what is it that Ghana can, I mean, this relationship with China, what is it for? Why is China important? What will we do with China?
You need to look at it from when we started our relationship during the early 60s. As you may recall, past President Kuffuor started the relationship, and he had a good relationship with Chairman Mao Zedong and Prime Minister Zhou Enlai. And if you were to come to the embassy in China, you find these lovely pictures there that will tell you a lot of stories. Now the point is, from as far back as then, and in those days, China was deemed to be an underdeveloped but a huge country. And they were supposed to be supporting, and they did support, the various up-and-coming, newly independent countries in Africa. And Ghana was at the forefront of the total liberation of Africa.
This is politics now you're talking.
That's politics.
Okay.
Then, as time went on, Nkrumah left the scene, and we all know what happened up to now in terms of where China is. It's quite obvious.
China has changed completely, and we haven't.
Yes. Why? Because their pace is different. They do things, as they say back there, with Chinese characteristics.
Chinese say they do things with Chinese characteristics.
Of course. So,
what do you mean? What are Chinese characteristics?
Well, they will tell you whatever agreement, whatever relationship you want to offer them, it is China first.
China
and
first.
Anything else second, anybody else second. What is our first? What is it that we can do that we call Ghanaian characteristics? Because the Chinese will do whatever they do, they will enter into a relationship with you bearing in mind what they want to achieve for their country. If he's a businessman, he will not do anything that will be inimical to the interests of China. Question: what do we as Ghanaians want to do that will not be inimical to our nation's interest, and therefore forge a relationship based on Ghana first?
So you're saying we must define even better really what we want. That's more or less what you're saying. Otherwise,
the question is, define to whom? We should define to ourselves.
That's what I mean.
Yes. So we should know what we're going in for. I mean, I guess you're a businessman, and any businessman, before you go into any venture, you want to evaluate it properly, because there are so many things you can get into. So whatever you want to go into, the presumption is that you do a proper evaluation.
Have we got it right? I mean, you are the ambassador to China. You are there. Ghanaians come there and go. Have we got it right? Do you think we are benefiting, or is there room? Could we do things differently?
We could learn quite a bit from what they do. And learning that will come more from the interchange of people coming there up and down. Not all of them will pass through the embassy. And even if they pass through the embassy, they might not be interested in finding out about how do you do business with the Chinese.
But there are Ghanaians there?
There are a lot of Ghanaians coming in and going out. Some of them are students. A few of them are staying there, working there. And they know and learn how to do business in China, because they have their culture. We have ours. So if you are in that particular country, you have to bear in mind the way they do things. And to me, to my mind, if anytime I had an opportunity of talking to any of them, to let them know that the important thing is the way they go about things. They are disciplined.
Discipline.
Discipline, to me, has been the key
for China's development.
Yes.
Discipline.
Discipline.
What do you mean when you say that? You see, Ambassador, you must explain this a bit more. This is one of those expressions bandied around, and it's important, but I think it's that we must be disciplined.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
Yes, I'll tell you. Now, where I live, where the embassy is, it's what you call the ambassadorial area. And you go to town, various towns, various cities, various roads, you see them. Question: how come the roads are always very clean? The answer is that the cleaning of roads is not done during the day. Yes, you find people doing all sorts of things, but that's done during the night.
They clean the roads in China during the night.
And by the time you get up in the morning, the place is spot clean. The flowers are there, the people tend to them, and things are done properly. They are focused. Now, what do we do back home?
Good question.
These are things you learn.
Yes.
You deal with any Chinese, be he a petty seller of whatever product or whatever he does. If it's 7 o'clock, he must be there. 7 o'clock, he is there. And if he must break at 11:30 for lunch, 11:30 he'll break for lunch.
So discipline is also time. Now you're saying time.
Everything is discipline. The primary word is discipline in every form or shape. So either it's a question of time, or a question of the way he would do it, or the way he's putting all his best. It's all a question of discipline.
So why? How come they can do that and we can't?
Well, ask me again. I guess it's more to do with their kind of people. Now, there's nothing wrong with us learning from that.
Yes.
And I'm sure a lot of the Ghanaians who've been to China and back will tell you that when they go to Guangzhou to buy whatever they want to buy or come up and do some business transactions with other Chinese, they see it. It seeps through that these Chinese are focused. They know exactly what they want to do. They are disciplined about it, and they will hone in and do it. It's not a question of giving excuses about this happened and I couldn't do it, and that happened and I couldn't do it. No question of excuse. Either you do it or you don't do it, and they will do it. Now, why can't we pick that up? Why can't we make use of that? Because, after all, the road had been opened. The president paid a visit to China 2002 when I was there. When I had just arrived, I got there 2002, August 1. And then he came over by the end of the year. And since then, he hasn't been. But I can assure you, other African countries, even forget about the bigger countries, almost every year, they do visit China. Ask yourself, why?
It's amazing, you know, because in a sense, it sounds like the president doesn't even travel enough then. He should be going there a bit more.
To my mind, I mean,
these are some of the things.
Talking about the country, my country of accreditation, I don't think it's enough. I'm not satisfied with that.
Because it's an important country.
Sure, because if you look at the sort of transactions we've been able to put together since I got there, you ask yourself, how are these things achieved?
What are these? What are the example? You see some of the transactions put together. I mean, what are some of the benefits you brought? You are the ambassador to the People's Republic of China. You talk about how we must be there for our benefit. They are here for their benefit. So, what have you done whilst you've been there?
It is not what I have done. It is what the country has been able to.
Yes, but you are the ambassador.
Well, yes, I am. In other words, it's not a question of a one-man show. The standards are set. You know what you want to do. You work as a team. But the important thing is, since being there, as you may know, quite a lot, a few things have happened. Some roads are being built. You know, part of the Kumasi-Accra road, Tawatin Sam is being built. You have the equipment range being built. The Flagstaff House, or rather, the pediatric house is being renovated. You have in the agriculture sector, things are going on. You have the military barracks and offices buildings have been built.
And a lot of this is because of part of the collaboration?
It's all because of the bilateral relationship and the way we handle our business. Otherwise, you cannot from nowhere have all those buses that we describe as Kuffuor buses. We are having also... Are
those Chinese buses?
Of course they are. Of course they are.
Made in China?
Sure, made in China.
Chinese.
And I believe they're doing well, aren't they?
Indeed.
Yes.
But that's weird, isn't it? I mean, how come the China... Must we be worried about China? You know, it's going to become a superpower. You know, superpowers can...
They are already a superpower.
They are?
Of course they are. I mean, it's there. Everybody knows that. It's a question of how they handle themselves and what do we do? What do we do to sort of imbibe and absorb some of the good points or whatever helped them to get to where they are? Because I've just enumerated quite a few things to you about what we've been able to achieve. The buses and telecom, Ghana Telecom, and you know, all sorts of things that we're doing. And we're still doing other things that hopefully will materialize.
So we should partner China more. You really think strategically a developing country like Ghana should partner a country like China?
It's not a question of partner. You should have a better relationship, improve upon the relationship. Because you talk about so many countries in the world. Now, why do you say partner this and partner that?
Because some are more important than others.
The operative word is the relationship. Further development of the relationship.
Should we further develop relationship with China?
Certainly.
More than other places?
Not necessarily more than other places.
Is it a special relationship? This is my point. Countries like the United States, you see them make positions and say, this is where we are going. That's what I'm asking. Is this, or is this, are we just a bit of here and a bit of there and a bit of everywhere?
I guess what you want me to do is to define government policy regarding China. And that's what I've just told you. Yeah. We have a good relationship with China. Yeah. We would want to, and we're working towards, and I believe we'll get there to have even a preferred relationship with China. Now, the Chinese, as you know, have what you call the Sino-African Forum. They look at Africa as a whole, and they look at the relationship between China and Africa. But they also know that Africa is made up of over 50 countries.
Indeed.
And therefore, apart from the bilateral relations, there are also multilateral relations. Now, in as much as you want to talk to them and see which ways you can get something done to further develop your country, so are the others doing the same. The issue is, it's not an issue of the quickest or the fastest in terms of how you do these things, but how you build upon the past relationship so that you get to a position where you need not be told, but you will know whether or not you have that preferred relationship or not, depend upon what you get out of the relationship.
Indeed.
And it is up to you to know how to ask for those things that you think you need, and don't, at the same time, don't give the impression of cup in hand, begging all around the place, give me this, give me that. That's not the point.
You don't go around begging them to help you.
No, you don't need to beg.
You make a case.
You have to make your case. For instance, I'll give you an instance. Right now, we all know the statistics about Ghana's economy, and we know the credit rating we've had, which has improved. Now, if you go in to have a discussion about whichever project that you want in your country, and you know there are various companies coming up in China, those here, and even if it's a government thing, now your first point of call naturally is to talk about the fact that, yes, now, gentlemen, we have this, we have that, we have that. Now, we want to do so and so. Now, what's the best method of doing that? Of course, if it's a question of a loan, if you get a concession loan and a grant, fine. But you don't go in asking for a grant. You must present your case as to why they should give that assistance or why they should collaborate with you to achieve whatever it is. And you must go in from a certain position, which to my mind, we are just there now. We are well positioned to go in and bargain and, and
benefit from that.
Of course.
Afari Donkor, I can't talk to you without remembering you as a famous banker. I still remember you with new banks and discount houses and all that.
Yes.
Now you're a diplomat. You changed, you're in a new line.
Yes.
What do you think of this environment now? I mean, you're no longer in the bank and all that, but there's new banks and this bank. What do you think? I want your views as an old, experienced banker.
When you say what do you think, what exactly do you mean?
What I mean is it you have been. Many years ago, you had a bank, you've seen it grow, you must have had some plans. You understand how the financial services sector can transform the place. Are the banks doing that? Do you feel that that's happening?
Yes, they're doing the best. And to see a lot more Nigerian banks coming here and see other international banks teaming up, it's an indication that there must be something good happening here. Otherwise, they wouldn't be coming. Yeah. So it's up to colleagues, or former colleagues who are now at the helm of affairs in the banking sector to try and improve their act. And I believe the central bank is doing that, putting together the various legal systems.
The central bank has been busy, obviously.
Sure, and putting the legal systems in place.
Yes, it's doing a good job?
Sure, I think they're doing a good job. The science are all there, the statistics are all there, and they've been able to control the inflation. So with that, the banks, like any other businesses, can plan ahead.
But people that here are not really satisfied with banks, Even government has had problems with banks in the past when you've been away. There's been stuff in the news and all that about banks making lots of profits and not being... I mean, could banks be doing different things?
Banks are banks. Banks are not philanthropic organizations, as you know that. So the issue is that, yes, it's their business to make money, just like any other business. Yeah. Now, I don't know anywhere in this world where the people are totally satisfied with banks. I mean, we know the story of Shylock and all that. So it's not that easy. The point maybe you want to drive at is, here you are, we are a society of just 20 million people. How many or what percentage of the population have really gotten on with the banking habit?
So few.
Exactly.
So there.
Now, therefore, how do you get the banks to go to those areas?
So that is the challenge.
That is the challenge. Meanwhile, the banks too wouldn't want to go to areas where they would not make money. And that's where I would take your mind back as to why banks like Ghana Commercial Bank and others were set up. Because by the time Ghana Commercial Bank was set up, we had the British Bank of West Africa, then Barclays Bank. And they were in the regional capitals where they would be able to make the, what they call branches work and good returns. But when we started thinking about national banks, Ghana Commercial Bank and the others, and Great Development Bank, the idea was the social responsibility.
But why? Why do you say that? You see, I don't understand that. Why should Ghana Commercial Bank carry out social responsibility? Why?
I'm not saying they initially.
Yes.
Remember, we've come a long way from the centrally planned economy.
Must they continue to play that role?
They will play the role of making money. And I'm sure Ghana Commercial Bank will not open a branch if they knew that the branch would not make money. And as it is now, the kind of economic system that we're running, nobody is going to push Ghana Commercial Bank to go to a place and just make a loss.
Rural banks disappeared, really?
Rural banks are now coming back.
Why are they coming back?
They're now in, because since they started, everybody realized that it's a good concept. It's working. So rather,
rural banks work?
Sure, they do work.
Oh, but Afari Donkor, in the past, rural banks, we don't. I mean, that's why you see they're coming back.
There were no rural banks. Remember?
Yes.
Yes, and going back to far back as when Governor Nikwe was there.
Yes.
That's when rural bank started.
Was it Amon Nikwe? Was it?
Yes, Dr. Amon Nikwe. Yes. So rural bank concept started as far back as.
It's a good idea.
Fantastic idea, and it's working. Rather, what we should hope for is to duplicate more of those. Now, if you and I would drift to the urban areas and work and make money, and forget about their villages where there are no banking systems there, what stops you teaming up with a friend of yours to help put together a rural bank in your village? Wouldn't that help? I guess it would, wouldn't it?
And it would be profitable?
Of course it would. You are the businessman. You sit down and do the arithmetic.
Yeah.
If you can get the community to have a little bank and get going, if Susu works,
yes,
the Susu system works, how come rural banks wouldn't work? It will work. Why don't you or most people take that as a challenge in our rural areas to try and develop the banking habit? Because it is good to have a bank account, isn't it? Because if you have a bank account and your bank manager knows what you're doing, it will be easier to fund you, to support you. But if you sit in the rural area, you sit in the urban areas, and you keep sending money to your grandma or whatever in the rural areas, and all she's got to do is to keep it under her pillow, and she has nowhere to even keep the money. Now, if something should happen and you're not around, how is the old lady or old man going to get a little bit of support?
This is critical. It's important.
It is.
And you don't think government should do it? You think private people should do it?
Government doesn't set up businesses these days. Government provides infrastructure. And that is why those travels and those government presidential travels, that's where it's important.
But it must create an environment for me to go and create a bank, put
exactly,
a bank there.
Exactly.
So what must it do so that I go there?
Yes, government provides the basics, and then by government's actions, be a catalyst that will enable you get the proper environment to go ahead and do your investment.
What are the basics that government provides, for example?
Basic infrastructure, and give you, make
this
sure that
country has little or no infrastructure.
Well, but we're still working on them.
Working on
government is working on them. The road that is there, improving upon them. Those that have gotten rotten, we have to fix them, and then give you the basic education, give you the basic things. If there's light there, the roads are there, the railways are being rehabilitated, then it's up to you. You wouldn't have to travel for hours to get to your village. It takes a shorter period, and the roads are not as risky as all that.
Yes.
So you get there quicker. In which case, the environment keeps on improving. And believe you me, when we talk about statistics, the economy is this, the growth is that, the inflation is so low, why don't you take advantage of that? This is what we as a people within our country should do. Because from the outside where I operate from, what I could do is to try and put together some transactions so that certain infrastructure development will go on. Then back here, as and when people travel back and forth, they will learn the way people do things. There are more interactions. And it will be easier then, with the opening up of the economy, to go to those areas. Because, well, Rome was not built in a day, was it?
No. Do you miss being a banker, Mr. Afari Donkor? You talk about it with certain passion now again.
Well, that's what I know. That's what I've done all my adult life, until this national service that I'm doing now. I've always been in the private sector and being a banker. What I'm doing now, I think it has been God sent in the sense that I'm still doing things as if we're in a bank, because being at the bank, it wasn't just a question of counting the CDs here and there, but it was part of my responsibility to see to transactions that would benefit the bank.
Now you live far away from here.
Yes, and I continue doing that. This time, the transactions that would benefit the country. So
the principle is the same, really. You're just saying you're doing it on a different stage, really.
Yes.
But you enjoy being, you're not as what you call it being ambassador to the People's Republic of China. I mean, in terms of the challenge it provides, that's what I mean.
Yes, the challenge, I think, is okay. I'm ready. If it should get even worse, I'm prepared to face it.
Yes.
I don't think that kind of boxer who shies away from a punch.
Indeed.
I take my punches well, and I believe I can dish them out as well. So the issue here is, yes, challenges, they will come. How do you handle them? And go ahead and handle them, and don't give excuses. That's it.
Good luck, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.